Welcome to this stream today. It's a very special stream. I look very much forward to it. Welcome to all you viewers out there, and welcome to the special guest, Agnius Batninkas. Hello and welcome. Agnius, you're having a successful company specializing in power automations, development, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here finally. And yeah, sure. So the company itself was actually established a bit something like 4 years ago, a bit less than that maybe. It's a very it's a very new thing for me. I basically grew out of being a specialist, an RPA developer actually, and turned into a manager. Although to be honest, the initial start of this company was just actually basically me freelancing myself out as a developer, but that only happened for like, I don't know, 2 to 3 months, and then I basically established the company with my family, with my wife and my mother-in-law, who actually are doing something else on the side with the same, just under the same roof of the company. And I was always the one handling this RPA thing. It was my baby from the very beginning, but it just took me a while to scale it. It's not really easy to do it. And mainly because I was a developer rather than a manager, but also because of the fact that I do it in Lithuania, and the skilled resources market is actually very limited here. It's very hard to find skilled RPA developers here.
Cool. And Agnius, I have to interrupt you because this sounds so cool. So you started up your company together with your family, and can you tell me that I know you take a lot of projects from other countries where people want to outsource. Why does it make sense to outsource to you?
Well, in general, I would probably start with why it makes sense to outsource in general, not specifically with me, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, well, mainly because, well, for instance, for a lot of organizations, especially those that are not, very large, for mid-sized organizations or smaller organizations where there is definitely potential for automation, that is obviously, it's hard to actually maintain a full team of people dedicated to doing this, not just a single developer, which would actually be a pretty bad practice in general, but an actual team of people capable of doing it properly. It's quite expensive, even with a lot of actual developers popping up all over the world recently. It's still rather resource demanding. To have that, you don't only need a developer, you also need analysts, you also need consultants, people able to identify potential projects for automation, potential processes that are good to automate and prioritize them, calculate the actual ROI, and make sense of what actually is the target to reach, and then develop it, and actually have continuity over this, so that the code that is being created, or the solutions that are being created by this team, is actually properly supported over time, and is not just lost when someone leaves the company or something. So normally with a company with an outsourced resource, you would have that. This would basically be guaranteed, because these sorts of companies specialize in that. They have teams of people doing it, and for the price of a project rather than a person full time, you actually get the actual functional project with a team who's familiar with it, whose the entire job is to actually being familiar with it and being able to support it, being there to support it when necessary. That's provided that the company you end up working with is a proper company that is actually skilled and doing it and using the best practices available. It's not always the case. We've seen various cases happening, and even in our own small market in Lithuania, there have been companies who don't really live by the best practices available, and they don't really do it properly. But at least what we get from our customers is the feedback we get is that we do a pretty good job at being able to support them. And to be honest, even though I know this is not really often stated as what RPA is supposed to do, but we do actually have projects that are still live in production all the way since 2018 or something.
Cool.
Which is, usually you would say that RPA projects should basically be deprecated within 2 to 3 years or replaced with something else. But it really depends on if our customers, some of them actually do have these sorts of processes that are very manual. They have no control over it, and it's been a while. It's still running perfectly fine. They're getting the support they need. They don't really need to dedicate their own or allocate their own resources to do it, and it just works basically as a service. So if you are able to analyze the market, find the supplier that does the good job, and actually maybe get some references or from their other customers and so on. And if the feedback you receive is good, then it would very likely make a lot of sense to go this way, at least to try it out. The very least we could do as a supplier is also that if you want to do in-house, it's also possible to at least have a consultancy house to train you and have help you establish a center of excellence or something, because at least they have the competencies and and the knowledge and the experience in doing that multiple times.
Cool, Agnius. And to you viewers out there, thanks again for joining. As you can see here in the background, Agnius prepared a nice show-off case in Power Automate, which we will get back to. But Agnius, one thing that I really want to know, say that I have a good developer here in Denmark, or a company that takes care of my solution. I'm a company, say a manufacturing company that uses RPA. So say they're good. Is there any price? Do I get a good price by outsourcing to another country? For example, Lithuania. I can say that if I have to pay a developer or an architect here, the range is between $200 to $300 US. We're not there. Our currency is not in US dollar, but equal to that. Will I save money by doing so?
Well, when compared to these levels, you would, but it really depends a lot. I know companies inside my own country that have lower rates than my own, but then this rate it doesn't really say a lot often, because the quality is also a matter. And then there's also the other thing where we, for instance, the way we work is that we actually estimate the number of hours or the amount of work needed to deliver a project, and then we basically fix the price there initially, and we don't change it even if it does actually take us longer to deliver something like something that the customer requested. It's on us, to actually be better at estimating it. This way we do it this way basically because we work a lot with smaller and mid-sized organizations that are actually sensitive about their budgets, and they want to know in advance what the solution will actually cost them. So we do it like this, and this works very well. We sometimes do underestimate some projects, but with experience that happens rather rarely right now, and so we're pretty good at it. Whereas I know competitors, I don't want to talk bad on them obviously, but I do know some of my competitors who have lower hourly rates, but they don't really fix those prices, and then they basically charge you for every email message they send or whatever. So it's the rate itself doesn't say that doesn't really paint the full picture. But to be honest, even with that in mind, our own rates are lower than those that you've listed. So if when compared to, I guess, a Danish or any other a developer in any other Nordic country, I would expect that Lithuanian developers would be cheaper. That's it's not because we like to be cheaper, but it's simply because of the economy. It's the price levels and the salary levels in here are lower, so it's quite normal to have services at a lower price as well. It's not our main selling point, but it is true, and the same is true with other countries such as Poland and Romania and Hungary and so on, where the normal price levels within the country are lower than those in your country. You would kind of be able to expect savings.
Yeah. And one thing that I thought about a lot when you were here, that is how you reach people, because I think it's such a cool model, and I don't think you even think about it yourself, but you're quite active in forums, for example, my Discord, where you just share your Power Automate knowledge, and that actually, of course, you do it to help. You even said that I think you mentioned that it kept your RPA game sharp. Is that right?
Yeah, I've done that in the past as well, in other forums and other communities. Even before I did RPA, I used to participate in other stuff that, for instance, in Excel stuff. Back in the day, I was a finance guy. I was the Excel guru of my office, so I would participate in Excel forums and so on, because I can see the benefit of it for myself. Not only, at this point, obviously, when I own a business, it makes sense for my name to be visible online where I can potentially find customers, but that's never been the main reason to do it. It's been the main reason has always been to keep myself up to speed with what's going on, because when I see a question on your Discord server that I don't immediately know the answer to, I know that this is something I need to look into, so that when a customer asks me this, I can answer them. It's a way for me to learn new stuff and make sure that I have the answers to the questions that my customers may ask me in the future, or a lead may ask me in the future, and so on. It's extremely useful to myself, because by teaching others, educating others, I learn a lot myself.
Cool. And what you can see is that I'm scrolling through all your great answers here on the Discord, and they're excellent. But it also serves the purpose that when I create this YouTube channel and create educational content, and often people contact me asking for consulting, or if I can recommend anyone. I don't do it myself anymore because I'm focusing entirely on teaching. And then I can recommend you because I don't really know you, to be honest. I know that you create amazing answers in here. I can see that you are very knowledgeable and you can answer almost everything, and you can even explain it. So then I can refer to your company called Robovirgin. So I think that's a cool approach. Even I know that's not your purpose for doing so, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and even developers could benefit from this strategy, like making answers online to get known and to get freelance jobs coming to them, or recognition, or anything. That's a good strategy, I think. And talking about that, if I'm a company right now, and I think this Agnius dude is cool, I've seen enough. His answers here on the Discord, they are great. Can you just tell us how we can find you?
Well, I can obviously be found on LinkedIn myself via my name or the company page, Robovirgin. There's also we also obviously have a company web page, which is robovirgin.com. So that's it has our contact details and a contact form for whoever wants to do it. We have it in English, obviously, for international audiences. So that's the main way I usually get contacted. It's either LinkedIn or the web page.
Cool. And I posted both links. I posted the link in the chat to Robovirgin. You can contact the company directly there, or you can find Agnius' LinkedIn profile. There's a link to that in the chat as well. And if you like this stream, you can help it a lot by giving it a thumbs up. That will make this stream come out to even more, so we can see more Agnius and, of course, also more me. So thank you for you helping by giving it a thumbs up. And back to you, Agnius. How big is the company? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually, relatively small, to be honest. We, at this point, the company itself, as I mentioned, is a family business, and there is, there is not just one activity that I do. There's other stuff. So the entire company is actually around 20 people right now, but a bit more than a half of that is actually the other types of business. I actually have right now 6 developers under myself in my team, and I have actually stopped doing development myself recently, like a couple of months ago. Before that, I would be one of them as well. I'm now focusing on customer relations and project management, and actually consultancy. So that's what I come at. But although usually we sometimes bring in some partners that process experts when we need consultancy on extremely large projects. But in cases when I can actually handle, it's me doing consultancy and 6 developers doing development. But to be honest, this has actually the 6 developers is actually a twofold increase to what I've started the year with. I only had 3 people under myself on the 1st of January this year, and I have 6. I actually had 7 at some point, but one of them was an intern whose internship just ended recently, and I plan to hire him back in sometime after the summer. So and I also expect further growth during the year. Because I can see there is potential to this, and it's the growth itself has worked out much better now that I already actually have a team that can educate themselves. As mentioned earlier, it was very hard to start up. That's the problem. Hiring people in is extremely difficult when I'm the only one who was able to develop and also had to teach these people. It was either hire people or and stop your activities, or not hire people and work yourself. So it was extremely difficult initially, but now I've actually got a team of skilled developers who can teach new guys coming in, so I don't need to do it, and the work doesn't stop when our company grows. So that's a great outlook. I'm pretty sure we're going to go in much larger numbers in the beginning of next year.
Cool, Agnius. And to you viewers that joined just now, this is Agnius, Agnius is an expert Power Automate consulting, having his own company that specializes in other people outsourcing their development projects. And we're so glad to have him here. He's also active in multiple forums, such as my Discord. And thanks for all the great answers, Agnius. Agnius, I will just dig a little bit into the chat because it seems that you are quite popular here. I will bring you some greetings and some questions. Sahil says, hello from India. Hello, Sahil. Mural joins from Canada. Hello, Mural. Bjørn from Norway. Hashal from India. Faraz from Egypt. And Ola Luva from Nigeria. Then Andre, he have a greeting for you, Agnius. He says, no question here. Just wanted to thank Agnius for helping me out on a few occasions in Anders' Discord. So that was a nice message for you.
Yeah, glad to help.
And James Taylor says, that's a good point. Sometimes the replacement is not affordable. That was to your, where you said the lifetime of your projects. Then Olaluva says, this is a really interesting model. Sajiv says, perfectly true. And we have a question here, and actually a donation as well. Thank you, SS. You're so nice. But he asked, my question is, what was the most easiest and the most difficult thing about transitioning from an employee role to a business owner role?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a tricky question, but I'd say that it was both pretty simple, but at the point was pretty difficult. Making the actual decision to do this. Because the initial idea I had was that I would do some freelancing as a side gig, and maybe gain more experience, and then maybe get a job in a different company, maybe get a more senior role or something like that. But then it turned out, because I never thought I could actually be a manager. I thought I would be a pretty bad manager, and to be honest, I was not that great for the first couple of years. I made a lot of mistakes, but then again, it was pretty simple to make the decision. I just came back home to my wife, and we talked for like I don't know, half an hour, and well, it was just like, why not? And we just tried, and it worked out. But then again, a very difficult part of this is that when I'm a manager, I'm not so much of a developer. It's I've still tried being a developer for quite a few years, and I was for a while I was the most productive of my team, even though I was working heavily overtime, and that's not the normal thing a business owner should do. The normal thing would be focusing on strategy, focusing on actual, building the team, growing the company, and so on. But I left that behind me as I was, daily working on providing services to my customers, which that's the hard thing, or the hard thing to understand or realize was that when you transition from an employee to a manager, you should no longer do the tasks the employee was doing. It's a manager role or a business owner role is a completely different role. You cannot continue doing the work of that you used to do, because otherwise you will never be a good manager. And that's the thing I needed to understand to finally manage to grow my team. So I guess that was the hardest thing. It's quite obvious now for me that I say it, and it sounds quite silly that it took me 3 years to understand it. But that was probably the most difficult thing to actually accept, is that in order for my company to thrive and grow, I need to stop doing what I used to do before I became a business owner.
Is it hard to not do the development? Is it triggering in you when you see a problem that you want to solve, or can you just leave it to the other developers at your company?
It was to some extent, it was it was hard to force myself to do it, because as I said, in the very beginning, I was the only developer in this company, and there are some processes still running from way back in 2018 that I've built a long time ago, and that my current staff is not very familiar with because they were not around when I did that. And it sometimes seems like when there's a support request or a new feature request for such projects coming in, it seems like it would be a lot faster and much easier for me to fix it myself than to actually explain some of the stuff to the team. And I've believed this, I've believed this for quite a while, that there's no one else who can do it better than me. But I was wrong, and it's quite clear that my team can do it very well. They are experienced developers. They're trained. They might, in some cases, need a bit more time to investigate the issue, but they will find a solution, and it works much better when I'm not involved. So it was hard, but once I started doing it, it became much easier. It was just this step to actually accept this and start delegating these sorts of tasks. And once I did, I realized that this is a much better way to do it, and it became much easier to do it.
Cool. Thank you for the answer, Agnius, and thanks to all the viewers again. Amar from Syria, Honda Accord says we should call you Mr. Worldwide. I'm not sure why is that, but that's great. Maybe it's because all the tasks you take from around the world. Where do your customers come from? Can you give us a report on that? You don't have to mentoring down to the details, but where are you mainly focusing on internationally?
Well, my major market is obviously my local market. Well, not really major, but the first market is my local market in Lithuania. I also have a partnership in Denmark, where I have some partners that bring in a lot of customer projects to me from Denmark. So Denmark is actually has now actually become a larger market than Lithuania for me. I've also got some prospects in Sweden, and I've targeted the Western Europe, which is the Benelux countries, but not really much has happened there. And I'm also trying to get into the UK right now, so I found some partnerships in there. So it's mainly Europe, basically, mainly the Baltic states, the Nordics, and a bit of Western Europe.
Cool. And after this stream, I hope you will get overwhelmed in projects worldwide from all the viewers that wanting to. I will post your contact information once more in the chat so people can reach you there. This will be the LinkedIn. Then James asks, do you currently only support Power Automate and Power Automate Desktop?
Well, kind of. We actually have worked with the Softomotive tools initially, that before they even were owned by Microsoft. So this was, Softomotive, Bin Automation, and Process Robot are the tools that turned into Power Automate Desktop after Microsoft acquired Softomotive. So we've worked with those tools initially. And now that Microsoft has actually acquired Softomotive, has created the Power Automate Desktop solution, we've started, we work with that as well. And we've basically started working with the entire Power Platform, except maybe the Power Virtual Agents, which is a chatbot functionality that we're not really interested in. No, none of our customers expressed any interest in that. We basically work with the Power Platform, which includes Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI as a full kind of a thing. And then we still work, because we still have some customers who are still operating on Softomotive's tools. Otherwise, we have some resources who have experience in Automation Anywhere, but it's not really, I wouldn't really be selling services in other RPA tools because, I can't guarantee the quality. I can definitely guarantee quality in Power Automate and, well, Softomotive, if that's still relevant to anyone, but not in Automation Anywhere, for instance. We also, on the side, do general traditional kind of development using Python, for instance, for some customers who opt out of RPA tools and want something like that. That's also an option. We don't really see a reason to go, this multi-software, multi-vendor path, mainly because, well, I'm a strong believer in the fact that Power Automate is on to become the greatest tool or the greatest RPA tool there is. If it's not there yet, it should get there. So I don't really see the point of having resources skilled in other tools when I wouldn't ever sell any of the other tools to my clients anyway.
Cool, thank you, Agnius. And to add to Agnius's point here, I saw a statistic today. I'm not sure about the source, but I saw that the Power Automate and the Power BI and the Power Apps, those jobs has just grown exponentially during the last year after Microsoft acquired Softomotive and Win Automation. So during the last year, there's been a huge explosion in jobs here. And I can also see that. You can see that I make a lot more Power Automate and mainly Power Automate desktop content, and that's just because the huge interest from you people out there. So I definitely agree with Agnius here that this will become huge, and I think you should learn it and use it, of course. Agnius, we have more questions. James asked another question. He says, "Are you planning to expand?"
To what extent? Is it geographically or in people-wise? Or well,
I think it is with a position designed for Mr. Taylor. No, just kidding. Now, will the company grow? Will you hire developers? We can take both questions.
Well, to be honest, I asked, but then realized that it's probably yes anyway, because I do plan to do that. It wouldn't make sense to have a company without plans of growing it. So we do plan on growing. I have a funny plan of outgrowing the office that we have before the lease ends.
Nice.
That's something my wife said I shouldn't really do, because then I would have where to put my staff in. But yeah, the funny plan that I generally tell everyone is that I want to outgrow this office, which is possible but ambitious.
Cool, thank you. And back to the questions. We also have questions from LinkedIn, so I'll go there. Ahmed says, "How to start an RPA company?" You mentioned that you were together with your family, but did it require a lot of cash, I can add? And how much time did it take before you actually made profit on these things? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Well, it didn't require a lot of cash initially. It just required a lot of my time. And, obviously, when time is whatever you value it, but you kind of need some savings to be able to start up without getting a lot of income right away, because it wouldn't happen very quickly. But if I remember correctly, I made the first something like the first 5,000 euros without, the only investments I made was buying antivirus software and Office 365 licenses for my home computer. And I did that within the first couple of months. At that point, I consider that as a kind of a profit, because as an employee in Lithuania, as an RPA developer, I would probably not have earned this much within 2 months. And I did not really need any investment to it, basically, because I already had a laptop and I just needed some software licenses, and that's it. But to be honest, I was lucky with this. So I can't really say that it will always be like that. I was lucky to get a customer who already trusted me because he was a former colleague of mine. Cool. This won't always happen. And it was, because we both left the company we previously worked for. So we knew each other. He knew I do a good job at this, and that's how it came to be. And to be honest, the reason why I have quite a few customers actually in Denmark is because the company I worked for had headquarters in Denmark, and I know quite a few CFOs and CEOs, C-level executives in relatively large Danish companies personally. So this helped me build a customer base. But it will not always happen, and I'm pretty sure if I started at a different time, if I waited a year, or tried starting a year earlier, it wouldn't really have been as easy as it was for me this time.
Cool, thanks for the answer. And James is adding, he says that he agrees that the majority of companies are already Microsoft customers, so why not go with the Power Platform? Sure. And then he says his question about expanding was more of a question regarding platform expansion, but you already told us that you want to focus on the Power Platform and not use other RPA tools, even though that you have some Automation Anywhere expertise in-house. And he says that networking and having a couple of contacts seems to be a recipe for startup small businesses. And that seems right. And Agnius, I know that some people here, they praise your Power Automate expertise, even though you tell us you're not a developer anymore. And what we have behind you here, and behind me as well, is Power Automate Desktop. You prepared a little case for us today. Can you tell us about what you want to teach us?
Yeah, well, it actually kind of depends on how much time do we still have, because I have a few things that I was going to show, but I'm pretty sure I usually talk too much.
I will say we have as much time as you have, because this is going to be great, I'm sure.
Okay. So yeah, there's a couple of things I was going to show, and one of those things is related to web automation via Power Automate Desktop. So there was this question some time ago, actually, in your Discord server, in the Power Automate channel, where some person actually asked how to properly extract data from a certain web page. And I wanted to show something else actually, but then since most of my customers and most of the project we did are either Baltic countries or Nordics, the web pages we automate for them are localized, so it wouldn't really be too great for international audiences. So I just picked this up, as I remembered it was English. So it's a job list, I guess, for McKesson. So it's an English web page that someone asked on how to actually scrape this, and using web automation to get the list of some positions and so on, maybe URLs to the actual descriptions and so on. So I am going to show you two ways of doing it. And I'm just, curious on whether I should now just try to build it from scratch and show you how this is done, or just show the final solution and compare it.
I talk for everyone here. We want to see it from scratch. And if people have other opinions, or if you think this is great, just let us know in the chat. Agnius, we want to see as much as you are, as much as of your teaching as possible.
Okay, cool. So basically, the very default way of doing web automation, other than trying to record it, which would be the very entry level kind of a way, but when developing it from scratch manually, obviously we would start with launching a browser or attaching to an existing browser, and then since this is a page where we're trying to extract some data from a list, and there is a search functionality, we might try to type in some values and click a button and so on, maybe add some filters and then extract the values. So I'm going to show you how that's actually done, and then once that's done, I'll show you a better way of doing it.
Cool.
So the demo view like this. So I would normally store some of the hard-coded values, and that's the practice we usually have, is that values and inputs should actually be stored externally. But just for the purpose of the demo, I'll do it all as setting variables inside this, so that we don't really need to read a config file or something like that. So just a URL with the value of the actual URL. And then maybe a search word. Yeah, so some, for instance, RPA.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe some other nice ways of editing, copying and pasting, right? A country. We might try to filter by country. And the way I saw some of the countries in here that are available, let's go with the US. Hopefully we can find some RPA jobs in there.
Yep.
Right. And then we would launch a browser and do this in Edge. Usually use either Edge or Chrome. They work the best, but Chrome sometimes eats a lot of memory of the machine. So in this case, I'll just try to do it in Edge. Right, so I'll launch a new window, but then again, actually, I could actually attach to an existing window because it's already there, and still actually use the URL. It would still be the same thing. So yeah, sorry about that. This would also work as I have the window open, but yeah, well, I can actually try doing that. It doesn't make much of a difference. And then normally, if I were to launch this and I need to wait for it to load, I would also put in some sort of a wait functionality that tells me that the page has loaded. So for instance, the search button or something else, some other type of an object that I can wait for. That's what I would insert, so that I can be sure that the page has loaded before I try to do anything with it.
So Agnius, this is great. Your best practice to us here, that you're saying that we need to validate that we actually are on the page that we want to be on. So we scrape the right results, and that is what Agnius is creating here. That's excellent, Agnius. Agnius, I have one thing I need to ask you about, because we have the pictures up in the right corner, and those ones are covering the variables up to the right. So can you make it a bit more narrow, the Power Automate desktop window, like dragging it a bit to the left, if you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I can try to do.
So up in the left corner, and then a little bit more to the right, bit more here. Is that okay? Yeah, we can see everything now.
Well, I can work with that. So if it's
cool.
Okay for you, then that's fine. Right, just give me a sec. So right, and then so we wait for the we wait for validating that the actual page is open, and then we would normally try to type in the value, type in the search word if it's there, if it's not empty. So for instance, maybe adding in some conditional on whether it's not empty. So yeah, is not empty. Then we would try to type in a value, but to be honest, and I won't even do this right now because I have tried doing it and it just won't work. This is possibly a limitation of this page or Power Automate itself, is that I wasn't actually able to use the populate text field in window action to type this in because it doesn't accept JavaScript. So what I needed to do, and what we sometimes do, we prefer not to do it, but we sometimes do this, is that we actually type it in via keystrokes, which is available as an option for some cases, but it must be done very carefully.
So this is some sort of a last resort that you will recommend us to do?
Well, it's not exactly the last resort. The last resort would be using image recognition, as in trying to click on an image in a web page instead of using an element. That is usually the last resort. Or even trying to click on coordinates in the window. That would even be worse than image recognition. But what I would suggest is normally using the normal elements, if that doesn't work out for whatever reason, in some cases because of the fact that Power Automate types in values as in, using JavaScript. And sometimes some of these input fields actually require normal user input and do not accept JavaScript scripts to just, pass in a value to it. So if I were using the populate text field action in here, it would actually appear as if it was typed in here, but after clicking search, it would be cleared up, and it wouldn't really end up in any sort of a, actual search. So what instead, what I will actually do is I'll try to focus on the element of the input field, which is actually possible. I can find the element, but instead of using the populate text field action, I will send some keystrokes. So yeah, right. So I'll just send keys, and I can still pass the keyword as if it was a keystroke command.
Sahil asks, do you prefer to use GUI clicks or hotkeys keyboard to navigate the GUI in web automation?
I obviously prefer using GUI clicks because that's usually more robust than using keystrokes because well, Power Automate actually has an improvement over, for instance, Softomotive tools, which at least I can actually tell it to focus on a certain UI element or a window in here, so that it kind of accepts the fact that I'm actually well, it would require an UI element. So a web element is not the same as a UI element. Yeah, but I could, for instance, select a window and make sure that it is actually focused on the correct window when I'm sending these keystrokes. So that's an improvement over what Softomotive tools had, because it would always just send the keystrokes to the foreground, and if there was a pop-up or anything coming up, if for whatever reason the active window lost its focus, it would just send the keystrokes elsewhere and it wouldn't work. And that's probably the poor experience I have with it, is what causes me to try to avoid sending keystrokes as much as possible. Usually, though, when it comes to web pages, for instance, the preferable way for us is to actually just build URLs and go directly to URLs when navigating it. So if I wanted to just go to some other, some careers page somewhere else, or some sort of a page that actually has a hard-coded URL, instead of clicking the button over here, I would preferably just send the URL command directly. But in this case, I actually, I could actually, I guess, think I could build a URL, whereas, just create a string that that passes in the parameters directly into the URL. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Just a sec. But preferably, sending keys is a less preferred way than clicking GUI buttons. Right, and then I need to, where was I? Right, so web form filling, and I need to press a button, the search button. And I think we can actually try running this. Also, one of the better practices is to try running the flow before you're done with the whole thing. To just do some verification of whether what you've already done actually works. So yeah, I've verified that what I've done actually works. It was able to type in RPA and click the search button. So it found one job in the US related to, actually not in the US. I haven't even filtered the country yet. That's sad. Anyway, right. So this helps me search for a keyword. Then if I wanted to add some extra features, such as, a filter for country, I would normally kind of have to click on this and then extract the list of countries that are available in here. It's not a long list though, but if I did not have the RPA keyword in there, it would be a slightly longer list. But again, this is a rather painful task to do in this specific web page, because I've tried doing it and it's, I wasn't able to properly click this button. This is just a bunch of, again, a lot of reasons for why the other better alternative that I'll show you at the end is actually better. But again, I'm just trying to show you all sorts of workarounds for what to do when it doesn't work.
Cool.
So yeah, I wasn't able to click this button. Don't really have an explanation for that. It seemed okay-ish, but the thing with the button itself is that if I were to go to the developer tools, yeah, this is the button over here, and I'm pretty sure that the ID it has. Oh wait, you don't see it, right?
Oh, I see it. We can see it, we can see it from the location country. We can see it now. And if you want to load this developer console that Agnius has here, you can press F12. That will get you there, or right-click the element and then click inspect.
Yep. So anyway, what I was looking for was a proper ID, but I'm pretty sure that it didn't really have an ID. It has this sort of a strange kind of tag that's called data automation ID, and PAD simply did not support passing in this as a search parameter. And these class IDs, they're actually dynamic. They change every time I reload the page, or well, maybe not reloading the page, but maybe reopening the browser or something. So it was pretty funky to try to click this button. So what I had to do was build a JavaScript function in order to do this. So that's also an option, running a JavaScript function on the page. It will give you a bit of a template for how to do it. And yeah, I will really, honestly, will not be writing it all the way down right now. I'll just copy it and paste it from my notes and then explain what it does. It's a very simple function that basically checks whether an element with this sort of a tag, data automation ID that equals to location country, exists. Basically finds it. If it doesn't exist, it returns false. Else, it clicks it and returns true. So, oh wait, I've canceled that. So, yeah, that's all the story behind it, and then canceling it.
And anyway, this is so cool that you're taking us through all these features of Power Automate Desktop, and especially what we can do if our flow doesn't work. So thank you again. And if you people out there like what you see, give the video a thumbs up, comment in the chat. That will help the video a lot. And thank you for watching. If you're just doing that, that's obviously also perfect. Back to you, Agnius.
Yeah. So again, also just a note over here is that when I did actually type in RPA in here, here's the URL that was actually built. So I could, instead of just, typing in RPA in here, I could have passed this at the end of the original URL, right? So this was the original URL, but I could add a parameter that says that my query is equal to RPA, and it would take me to the search results. So that's also a possibility if you know how the URL is actually built, which is easy to investigate, actually, just playing around with the search. And then you wouldn't even need to type in a value in the search field or click the search button. It would be much easier to just build the URL right away.
Cool.
Anyway, so this one will actually click the button so that I can see the list of countries. And I would actually prefer the list to be a bit longer in this case, so I'll just clear the query so that it's not just, okay, well, it hasn't cleared out, a bit slow here. Yeah, there we go. So this would click it. Let's try clicking it. Oh, wait, it won't attach now because the URL has changed. Just a sec.
No problem. I'll bring you a question if you can manage to handle the question while you code, because Sahil asks, if you aren't able to find the right selector for an element, like a checkbox or radio button to change its state using Power Automate Desktop, how do you interact with that element then? What's your strategy?
Well, it depends on where the element is, on whether it's like, in a web page like this one, in which case the usual strategy is to use JavaScript like I did right now, or link building if possible, if the element actually requires navigation. But if you're talking about radio buttons or checkboxes, JavaScript is usually the way to resolve a problem within a web page. But if it is if it's a local application of some sorts, then, well, basically the only options you have in Power Automate are to use either keystrokes to check the checkbox or something, or image recognition, and to click, to send a mouse click to a radio button or a checkbox, which is very basically the last resort you should actually go to.
Cool. And that was an answer to you, Sahil. And thanks for the question. And just keep the questions coming. I'll bring them to Agnius while he codes.
Yeah, anyway, so again, the best practice over here would actually be waiting for the element to appear. So waiting for this whole list to appear. But if for the sake of actually making this a bit quicker, I will avoid doing that. And instead, I will go directly to extracting the list. So, because again, in some cases, if this was actually coded as a drop-down list, for instance, or potentially, oh, okay, this is now going a bit crazy, right? Yeah.
What's your advice here when Power Automate for Desktop starts to go crazy? Do you restart or what do you do?
It doesn't really go too crazy too often. So this was just because I actually had this, the extract data from web page action open when I switched to a browser. So when it does that, it's because this live helper is up and it's expecting me to select something to extract. And I forgot about that before starting to talk about stuff. So I would normally, if it would get stuck, then just terminating it would do the trick, but it doesn't really get stuck too often, so that's not a problem. Anyway, so I'm going to extract some text over here, just the label, so that I can actually find the correct country. The problem, and it does actually start helping me out over here. The problem with this is that, again, the checkbox itself doesn't really have any, it's not really related to the label over here. So I can't really just tell Power Automate to select the checkbox that says United States of America. It's a separate element. So instead of this, I actually need to extract the entire list and then extract the IDs of which, and that's a custom attribute actually. Mm-hmm. The ID of the checkbox, which is a GUID basically. And when I have that, I can use the name of the country to identify what I actually need to check. and then the ID to actually provide that as a sort of into the parameter for the selector that I'm trying to check. So basically, yeah, I'll do this. This will result in a table. It will give me a 2-column table basically, and yeah, I'll save this.
And Bharat says hi to you, Agnius, and hi to me. Hello, Bharat. Thanks for joining Agnius' session here.
So, and then I would go do a loop basically, and with this loop, I'll go through, the entire table. And the current item in this case is now a row, basically, so a data row with 2 columns. And then I would do a conditional to do, so if I've named the column, so I can use the column names, equals to what I have as a country, or actually really equals to what starts with. Just a sec.
Where did you name the?
Yeah, it's over there. Yeah, action number 3, country, United States of America. But the thing is that in here it also has the number of actual entries in there in the same name. So I actually need to use starts with rather than equals. So I do that. And if I do have that, I will get a new variable called, for instance, a country ID that stores the ID.
Cool. How did you get headers on your data table?
Yeah, just a sec, I'll show you. Yeah, so I was actually in this. Yes, I need to put it to load again. Yeah, so this is the preview of the extract data action, and over here I actually have these fields over here that they were previously populated with value number 1 and value number 2, and I can easily edit these. So that's what I did.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you.
So, and that's how I would get a checkbox, basically. So I can actually start from here because the button has already been clicked. I would get a checkbox ID. It would look somewhat like.
And is this something that you recommend when you develop, that we just start from here? Each time we see something succeed, then we can move the start a little bit down just to while we develop /debug?
Yeah, well, that's the way I do things. So I would expect, I see it work pretty well. If you have a better way of doing, this sort of unit testing, my small batches of code being tested, I guess it's a matter of preference. But the way I see it, this works very well.
Cool.
Okay, and so now I've got 2 options that I could go with, and one of the options is actually trying to check the checkbox via, basically the set checkbox action, or possibly even a another JavaScript functionality. So I'll just do this just to show you how I would do it, but I will not really do it because that's not really as interesting. So if I were to do this, and I would need to capture a checkbox. So yeah, let's just do this one, a sample checkbox to capture. And then I would need to actually adjust the value behind it. So this is the checkbox. No, wait, this is the checkbox. And it actually stores the ID over here. And this ID is the country ID that I've, or the checkbox ID that I've just extracted from this view. And I already stored it in a variable called country ID for the correct country that I need. So I'll just switch it to country ID over here, and that's it. And I would be able to use this. And, well, instead of unchecked, I would select checked, but otherwise, yeah. But the other way I prefer actually is the URL building feature that I've already told you about. So what I actually have done, and I'll just copy and paste a few actions so that you know, and then show it to you. So what I have actually done in the past is, oh wait, this is not going to copy it nicely, is this. So I've got the URL, which is, this is the core URL over here. And there are then some query parameters after the question mark. So this would be the keyword, the RPA keyword that I've typed in. And then this is the country ID I've just extracted. Because I have found that this is the parameter it uses. And finding it is quite simple. You know, I will select United States of America and click it. And there we go. I have location country equals some ID. So this way, this is the way I identify the country I need to, the parameters I need to use. And then I use some replace text actions. It's as simple as that. So I have a replace text action that will pick up the URL value and replace the value keyword with the variable keyword and store it back into the URL. And the same thing for country ID. So I have the keyword somewhere up there, but I'll just move it over here so that it's actually selected. And then the same with the country. And I'll run this. So I'm attaching to it. I'm extracting the data. I get the actual country ID. I build the URL. And yeah, okay, I did not get the actual country ID, but seems to actually have worked for some reason. It passed an invalid filter. That's funny. So give me a sec. The country ID was not found for some reason. So the current item. Oh, right. Okay. Just a sec. I hadn't really used the JavaScript thingy over here. Let's try again.
It's so nice to see that you take us through the entire process, Agnius. Thanks a lot. And is this the approach that you teach your developers, or are they not? Are you not the teacher anymore?
Yeah, I'm not always the teacher, but I do sometimes teach these funky kinds of things to them because I have a lot of experience in various sorts of processes. So I've seen various approaches to do, but yeah, I would usually suggest doing link building when it comes to web page automation. So basically, what I just did is, yeah, I did still need to click this to actually get the list of countries or to actually extract this ID for the United States of America. But then, you know, I did not at least need to actually use this UI or actually check this checkbox at all. I just needed to expand the list, and then I built the URL.
Cool.
And then I would just, you know, basically be extracting this, you know, the list and getting it into, you know, if there were more, if it was an actual list for that matter, I would be getting the URL and the name and maybe some locations and whatever. But now I would just like to quickly try to tell you of a better way of doing it, which is an exposed API. So in this same, the reason why I actually opened this was not really so much to show you the elements in there, but it was because I will actually be using the network tab over here to just see what this, what the web page actually does in the background. So what it does is that it actually runs a query to an API that they have. And this API, yeah, just a sec, I'm pretty sure it's this one, but I'll see. Yep. So what it does is actually, yeah, that's a preview. This is probably easier to read. So basically, if I send a request with headers like these, or most of them can actually be skipped, but only some of them are actually relevant. So with a URL, a method, yes, content types, and then some payload over here, which basically sets the limit and so on. I can actually get this without a browser UI. And even more so, if I were to use the URL I used previously, just a sec, I'll go back and just simply refresh the page. So if I use the URL like this, and so the jobs query will actually also have all of this stuff. It does actually pass in the country in here, and the search text is also available. What you would actually end up needing is getting the countries. So that's a trickier thing to do if you actually want to filter them. But it's also possible to get all of the countries via an API. So I'll just quickly show you how to do this with a new subflow, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking for more questions, so just looking a bit away now.
Yeah, and just basically going to use the same few variables from here. And right, so I'm going to invoke. So that's under a different tree node in here. So there's an invoke web service action for Power Automate desktop that I would need to. Just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in order to get the URL that I need to call, I'm just going to pick this one up from here. I'll also get the method, which is post.
And all these things, you you opened up the developer tools and found the information there?
Yep. Yeah, and then the custom headers I needed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't even need any custom headers. But let's try with. I'll just pick this one up and quickly edit out whatever is unnecessary. Oh wait, this is not actually headers. This is body. I'll remove the country. Yeah, I don't need that initially. I've tried increasing the limit. It doesn't work. It doesn't allow to get more than 20 for this specific page, but the offset is there for pagination. So if you wanted to extract the 100 entries, you would actually have to call this web service 5 times and just increase the number in the offset over here. So just looping through this and getting 20 on each instance. So let's just see if this actually works. Yeah, okay, it doesn't. Just give me a sec, because I'm pretty sure, my other Power Automate window just crashed, so I kind of need to close it. That's what you get with demos.
Yeah. I will Thanks, James and Sahil, for all the great questions and comments. Highly appreciated. So thank you. And Agnius, they all say they learned something new, and these APIs, they're so great. They want to try it themselves after the session. So
yeah, the idea is that I'm very likely, I'm missing, a header over here, but it's just that I'm trying to. I don't really clearly remember which one of these was it that was actually necessary.
No.
So the idea is that normally, with this in mind, me adding in a header over here, the correct one, which sadly has crashed on me. So just a sec, I need to save this and close it, and then once I reopen it, it should be fine. But the idea is that when using exposed APIs, you will usually be able to do the same task without, basically without using the browser at all, which makes it a lot faster, and at the same time, less error prone. Because when you try to do all of these, clicking UI elements and so on, or extracting data via an UI, you're actually relying on a user interface, which can change, and it's completely out of your control. Whereas, when you do it via APIs, it's even if it's an exposed API like this, it's not documented. It's something they actually use. It's just their own web page calls their servers to get data. So it's not really documented. It's not intended for external use, but it changes in this are way less frequent. So it's a lot more robust solution. It will require a lot less maintenance, and with that in mind, it will also work much faster.
Cool.
Yeah,
and
so
if you find the solution, do you mind pasting in the actual header that we should use in the comments below if you find it after? Like if people watch this 2 days ahead, then you might have posted in the actual header that we want to use.
Yeah, I actually
if you
already
find
did. It shouldn't really be. It shouldn't really be a header. It's more of a fact that I actually deleted a part of the body rather than using an incorrect header. And then there is some stuff in the advanced part over here that you might need to sometimes play around with. So for instance, when you're actually passing in a body with JSON, you usually don't encode it, which I forgot. So yeah, this should actually return some results. Yep. So with this is actually an actual response that
you fixed it, Agnius. What a sweat.
So it's, yeah, it returns 855 job results. It tells me that there is 855 available, but it only returns the first 20. So if I wanted to get more, I would need to pass in a different value into the offset value.
Cool.
So anyway, that's a way of doing this. And it is also possible to add in filters in the query as well. For instance, I've actually, if I were to add a search text, for example, that's possible. So if I just do something along the lines of this, where I have keywords stored as RPA over there, it should return the only one job posting there. Nope. Yeah, I probably made some syntax error. But yeah, the idea. Wait. right. Yeah, this was not really facet, right? Yeah, I did make a syntax error over here. So, yep, this way, and like that. So, yeah, so it does find a single job posting that says senior manager transformation office. It's quite, it's not very fun to read this in Power Automate, but if you were to, if you were to copy this and paste it to VS Code, for instance, and then, VS Code will actually understand it's JSON usually, and then you format it and you can see all of the data over here. That's basically the same stuff that you would see in the web page, and you can get the URL over here that would allow you to go directly to the offer over here. If I were to click this, it would basically just add the exact same URL that was there available.
That's so cool, Agnius.
So this was the alternative to using web scraping, basically. That's what we like to do. It's not always there, obviously. Not all web pages will have their APIs exposed, but when they do, this is the very, much better way to do stuff than it would be if you were, and then it would be to scrape data out of it via UI actions.
Cool.
The next funny stuff, which I will just very quickly show, it's a completely, it's a short thing, is the fact that what I love the most about Power Automate is that you can actually write code for it, which is not really for everyone. Not everyone loves to do that sort of stuff, but I can easily copy the entire function over here, or subflow as it is called, and paste it into VS Code. And it's like that. It's obviously not JSON anymore, but it's actually Robin. And it's pretty readable. You can understand most of it pretty easily. And you can actually paste it back into Power Automate Desktop. You can make changes in here and paste it back. I can actually add something in here, such as, whatever. And just pass in an empty value. And I can, where was it? Demo. And I can paste it somewhere over here. Or can I? Not anymore. So then if I were to do something like this, and then maybe not an empty value, but the entire function. So it says something over here. This is the action I've just added. The reason I like this is because I actually prefer editing entries in this view. And I can actually even edit the controls, which is the selectors for the objects that I've captured in here as well. I prefer it this way simply because, well, to be honest, the UI is a bit slow, as you've probably seen with me doing this stuff. It is a little bit slow. And if I, for instance, needed to, rename some variables or change some values in it, it's way easier and way faster to copy it out into a text editor and do it like that. But with some hardcore developers, if you have any in the audience, you can actually write the full function and it would work.
Cool. And what language is this written in? Can you repeat that?
It's Robin, which is a custom language created for this. So the reason I have this highlighting rules in here is because we've actually built a custom VS Code extension Robin. So it's not publicly available, but it's also interpreted slightly similarly to Visual Basic.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, was it VB script? Yeah, it kind of interprets parts of it. Still makes it easier to read than if it was just plain text. But we've actually created, a developer in my team has actually created a custom extension for VS Code for the Robin language. So it's easier for us to do it because we actually do code reviews for the code we develop in Bitbucket, our Git repository, where we actually paste it as text rather than doing it and via the user interface of Power Automate.
That's so cool, Agnius. It's really nice that you want to take us through some of the more advanced features of Power Automate Desktop. And we can clearly see a lot of use for that. We have a lot of chat going on. People are helping each other. Andre Pierce was the person telling you that you did great helping him, and they're discussing some of the API things, which looks fine. One question from Martin, which I will get back to, that was from your first robot we built, where we just used a graphical user interface where we click buttons. How did you get the URL of one of the job posts? Can you show the extraction of the URL there?
I'm pretty sure I haven't done that, but I can do it.
No. We moved on, but if you could show that, just how you would do if you wanted to scrape the URL out of one or more of the elements.
Yeah, sure, that's not a problem. So yeah, I'll just copy in this action so that I don't need to. And then basically, well, this is an action that's already there, but I should get back to remove the filters and get back to the original page. Just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think I would prefer having a full list rather than it being filtered out, so that it's actually a list, because there was only one value in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was, if I was interested in getting some data, I would usually, so this was in a different field. I would usually probably pick up the actual name of the position, I guess. That's, we're looking for jobs. That's one of the things I can get. And if I select another one, it will usually automatically understand that I want the full list and will read the rest. I would then actually try to, because the URL is actually behind this element. So I would actually go here and select, instead of the text over there, I would select the href, which is the actual URL. So I would have a 2-column table with the name of the position and the direct URL to more details of the job. I could also extract something else, if the location, for instance. But yeah,
same syntax that.
Yep,
cool.
And that's that. And if you wanted to edit this in any way, there's the advanced settings button over here. That's a bit slow, and it actually shows you what's the selector behind the whole thing. So there is basically this is the base selector, right? So the UL is an unordered list of all of these job postings, and this is the LI is a list item basically. So each of these is a list item. And then there is just some divs within it that actually handle the rest of it. So this is the header, the name, we get its own text. This is the same selector, but we get a different property. And then there is a different selector that returns the location. We can also add some regexes over here that filters out irrelevant data if that was ever necessary. So this would basically be the way I would extract it. Name the columns, then some location, would save it, and then I would be able to access this via as a variable after it's extracted.
Cool. And Sahil, he sent us money for coffee. So Agnius, if you ever come to Copenhagen or I come to Lithuania, then I have money for a coffee for us. Thank you, Sahil.
Cool. Thanks.
Now this looks really, really cool. And again, this is Agnius from Robovirgin. He excel in Power Automate development. And if you have any jobs for Agnius, you can find him either at Robovirgin. I will post a link in the chat again, or you can write him personally at his LinkedIn, which I'll post now here. Agnius, we are about to come to an end. Is there anything you want to add to the session?
Yeah, well, I guess the only thing is that, Power Automate at this point is actually a bit of a, we consider it to not really be as mature as some of the other tools that are available in the market, as UiPath or Automation Anywhere. Mainly because, it still has some stuff where Microsoft basically launches updates to it, and pretty significant updates every month or so, with new features being added. It's growing very rapidly. At the very same time, it's also, that, with new features, there's sometimes stuff that is, that can even cause some bugs and stuff like that. For instance, the slowish UI of the developer console is something I don't like about the tool, and that's why we figured out that using VS Code is a better alternative. But it's still, the way we see it is that it has a great core. The soft automotive tools were amazing when they were, mature enough. And now what Microsoft has added on top of that core is the whole cloud functionality that is just, it's unmatched basically. And the way we see it is that in the near future, if Microsoft keeps improving these tools as much as it does right now, I'm pretty sure it will be, the top tool in the market. I wouldn't, really say it's the top tool just yet, because there's still room for improvement. But with the rate of improvement I see right now, I'm pretty sure it will get there soon.
Cool. Thank you, Agnius. And what you're saying here is that at the moment, Power Automate for desktop is growing in features and improvements, but it's still not up on par with the big ones. So when you lack features or you find yourself short on drag and drop components in Power Automate desktop, does that mean that you use a lot of code invoking JavaScript and all these things here?
Well, it's not like we use it a lot, but there are cases when we do JavaScript or PowerShell automation, or even Python. But that's because we prefer doing it like that. For instance, there is plenty of actions with the Microsoft Office, right? So there's a lot you can do in Excel. But there is no inbuilt actions for formatting an Excel sheet, like adding, different fonts or colors and so on. And when you need to do that, there's basically two options with Power Automate. You either do it via the user interface of Excel, which would be extremely painful, or you do it via PowerShell or Visual Basic. And it's both available. It requires some coding skills, but works very well. Power Automate can do it pretty well. So there are some cases when we do need to do some coding, when it's absolutely necessary. That's quite rare. But we do sometimes use it when it's a better alternative. It's not like it's a necessity, but it's the better option than just the GUI actions. Simply because we know how to use it, we have the skills, and we want to build the best possible solution for our clients.
Cool, Agnius. And James sent us money for beers. So now when you and I meet, I have money for coffee and beers. Thank you, James, as well. All too kind. And Agnes, based on the chat and the reactions here, we can see that you have been a huge success. I hope that Robovirgin will get a little bit exposed to new customers after the session. And again, the link is both here in the chat to Agnius's company, but it's also in the description below. Agnius?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun, and I'm glad to have finally managed to get to it. Sorry I couldn't manage the first time, but it was fun and interesting. And yeah, well, thanks for having me, and thanks for hosting the amazing community on Discord.
Thank you, Agnius. And did you have any sweat on the way? Were you nervous at some point that something didn't work? Because you managed to figure it all out, but...
Yeah, well, basically because the window I had in the background crashed at the moment at some point when I needed it, the API thing. But yeah, it worked out quite well, so it's fine.
Cool. And to all you viewers out there, thanks a lot for joining the session. We couldn't do it without you. See you next time. And you can post your questions. If you watch this video in the future, you can post your questions in the comments below. I'll make sure that I'll bring the relevant one to Agnius. Until next time, see you. Bye-bye.
See you.
So the stream is over, Agnius. I will